Oops, I've clicked the wrong thing, haven't I?
That's okay. That's not a problem.
I keep getting a save an error message, do you?
All right, so suddenly it looks different.
It's because you've got all the control now.
Is anyone getting a save an error? Is anyone getting a save an error dialog box coming up?
No.
You're not. It also looks as if we now actually have some attendees.
Yes, we do, and we're already broadcasting, though we haven't started formally.
Okay. just so everyone can see our professional setup. Well, welcome to the people who've come in as attendees.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Can we see who the people are? Oh yeah, we can under here.
There's a tab for attendees.
So when it's time to change presenter, do you want me to make presenter the person who's the next up, or are you okay changing with all the power of the organizer, changing yourself? What do you prefer?
It might be best if you just change between us
Yeah.
all, and then we're kind of wrapping up. And, yeah.
Sounds good.
So morning to Anna, Colin, Marissa, and Rachel. We'll be beginning shortly. Is it worth you putting up your opening slides, Alex, and then people see as well that, you know, the basic housekeeping?
Something's about to happen. Yeah.
Oh, I can't. I'm not. I have to make myself presenter, don't I? I don't know.
Or I can make you presenter, don't worry, if you can't do it. Your RDA Secretariat, yeah? You got it?
Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, we see you. Is this holiday photo? Diving?
No, unfortunately not. Just a stock photo reminding me I'm not on the beach, actually.
Oh well, next year it will be time in Greece.
Yep.
It's a nice picture of Edinburgh. Hopefully people will be able to get there for the plenary. Let's see.
I actually saw an email yesterday. There's now a VR set to take you around Edinburgh. Maybe that's what we should do.
I saw something, similar.
Yeah.
Didn't have time to get something about it in my,
Virtual reality around Edinburgh for all the remote participants, or virtual Kaylee, where you don't have to worry about social distancing.
Dance in your kitchen. That'd be great.
Yes. Dance at home. We'll pipe the Scottish music through.
Exactly.
I had Google reminded me that I was in Helsinki a year ago. Some photos.
Oh, really? God.
Yeah.
And sorry, my phone just said, what's the reminder? Because I said Google and it thinks I'm talking to it. And 2 years ago I was in Berlin.
Turn down to my phone to see what's the reminder, cause I said, Google, do you think I'm talking to it? When do you want to be reminded?
My Google Home does that as well.
Okay, we've got a few people coming in.
Okay, I won't say GOOGLE at any point in this.
So just for those coming in, we're just kind of waiting for the hour and to get ready to start. Thank you all for coming. Nice to see a few of you here and some familiar names.
I'm good to see some unfamiliar ones as well.
I know, it is. Yeah, actually more names that I don't know than do know, which is really nice to see. Hopefully people who are either new to RDA or interested in coming to a plenary.
Okay, we're a minute past. Should we give it a few more minutes? Because I see people are still coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe give it till like 3 past or something.
Yeah.
Hope you're all healthy and well wherever you are. I see we've got people in Australia and UK and it's Mary in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Even though
So
the hour
late
has
evening
changed,
for late evening for some, and very early morning for others.
Yeah. Or just a civilized time of day for us in Europe. Not too early morning. I'm not good with early morning calls, particularly on a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good one from Argentina. Questions?
Oh, really? Okay. Ah, nice. Marissa. So Marissa, I mean, I assume you may know already, but there's a plenary happening next month nearer to you as well, well, virtually as well, through Costa Rica. So hopefully you're able to join that as well as the Edinburgh one. It's nice to see people coming in from South America. So do you think we should start, Alex?
It's 3 minutes past, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Excellent.
So, hi everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar introducing the Research Data Alliance in Plenary 17. I'm Alex Telipalta from the Digital Curation Center and the local organizing committee. And before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping details. Firstly, this webinar is now being recorded. The video and the presentations will be available after the event on the RDA website. You will have noticed that you are all currently muted. If you have a question, you can share at this link, the tinyurl.com/RDAP17Q. I will also paste this on the chat, or at the Q&A box at the bottom right of your control panel. There will also be a Q&A session at the very end. Feel free to raise your hand. Hopefully we'll have enough time and we can unmute you and you can read your question in person if you prefer. Just a very quick look at our agenda. We have, and our speakers, we have Hilary Hanaho from the Research Data Alliance, Kevin Ashley from the Digital Curation Center, Juan Picaregui from STFC, Christopher Brown from JESC, and Sarah Jones from GIANT, and they will each give you their unique perspective on RDA, on plenaries, and why you should attend Plenary 17. Thank you all very much, and on to our first speaker. I will stop sharing.
Don't have that green button there, Alex.
There you go. You should do now.
I have me. Oh, show my screen. Yes. Okay. Right. I hope you can see that. So, first of all, good welcome. My name is Hilary Hanaho. I'm the Secretary General of the Research Data Alliance and have been since early 2018. So it's my great pleasure to speak to you very briefly, because the webinar is long, but just to put the context of the Research Data Alliance and where it sits in the world of open science. Before I do that, I'd like very much to thank the local hosts of the 17th plenary meeting. We organise plenary meetings all over the world, every 6 months at the moment. And it's a significant investment for an organisation or a group of organisations to take on and to host an event. And we are very grateful to the Digital Curation Centre, UKRI, and specifically STFC and JISC for stepping up and offering to host the plenary in April. I do hope that we will be able to actually go there and meet, but let's see what happens. At the moment, we will go forward in the hope that it will be at least with a hybrid event with virtual and physical presence. So what does the Research Data Alliance have to do with the world of open science? And you know, where is the connection, if you like? So if I take the definition of open science from Wikipedia, it says, as you can see there on the screen, that it is the movement to make scientific research, including all of those aspects, publications, software, data, and physical samples, and the dissemination of this scientific research available to all levels of society, amateur or professional. The concept also is that it's transparent and accessible knowledge that's shared and developed through collaborative networks. And then encompasses, of course, a series of different practices around publishing open research, campaigning for open access, encouraging scientists to practice open notebook science, and generally making it easier to publish and communicate scientific knowledge. So it's a rather grand, large, and broad, if you like, landscape open science. And the Research Data Alliance is quite relevant to that particular vision. The Research Data Alliance was launched in 2013 as a global endeavour, a sort of a bottom-up organisation, international, inclusive forum, where people who strive for open science, data professionals and experts, could come together and work together on a global platform. So the concept of finding data, accessing data, integrating it, testing it, analysing it at any time, at any place, and you know, for any technology or any discipline is really what RDA was set up to do. And that was 7 years ago. And I think I'm quite proud to be representative of this community. I'm quite humbled and honoured because I represent over 11,000 individual members from 145 countries across the globe who do that, who work towards this vision of openly sharing and reusing data across technologies, disciplines and countries to address the grand challenges of society. So whatever the technology, whatever the discipline or domain, and wherever you are in the world, our vision is that one day we will be able to share and reuse data openly to better society. And the mission of RDA, so how do we do that, is to build the social and the technical bridges that will enable that open sharing and reuse. And we do that in two very specific ways. This wonderful community of individual members either get involved or set up groups, interest groups around which have a sort of a broader focus around areas of data challenges or domain-specific challenges to do with data, and discuss and get together, or working groups which have a very specific dedicated deliverable in terms of adoption and in terms of implementation. And as you can see on the right side of the screen there are 36 working groups running active at the moment with 57 interest groups. So we have 93 groups working on many different areas. We have to date issued 50 flagship outputs, of which 8 of them are standards, are recognized as standards, with others, another 8 in different phases of the standardization process. We have been able to document over 100 adoption cases across different disciplines and organizations, but we know there are many more. The concept of RDA is that all the solutions and the outputs that we produce, that the community produces, are made available to be reused, to be implemented, to be customized in any sort of specific way that's required. And the other type of membership is, of course, organizational members. So we have organizational members who come and who also support in the areas of adoption. They give the organizational perspective on RDA and its outputs and the areas in which we should still address, and there are many. And of course, affiliate members, which are organizations that are like-minded and that have the similar, if you like, in some way, benefit to the community. For example, one of our affiliate members are the Research Software Alliance, or the Global Indigenous Data Alliance, or CoData, or the World Data System. So we have 11 of them. It's very important to say that everything that we do in RDA is based upon 6 fundamental values, or what we call our guiding principles. And that's not just the onus on the community in terms of the organizational and the individual members, but it's also the onus on me and my staff and everybody who works in the operational side of things as well. And we all adhere to these 6 fundamental values of openness, that it's consensus built and driven, that there's balance or inclusivity, if you like, that there's harmonization within the activities, that it's driven by the community, and that it's non-profit and technology neutral. And I give one slight word on the last one because I'm often asked. What we mean is, as like I said before, all of the outputs of RDA are openly accessible, whether you were involved in the definition of them or not. When the groups are set up and the proposal to define outputs is made, what we do check is that there's no potential technology lock-in. There's no specific commercial or technological product being proposed. Of course, once the output is there, the outputs can be built upon and customized in that open source kind of model, if you like. So I think so these are fundamental guiding principles, as I said, and everything that we do is based on them. And so RDA is truly a global collaboration. It does if I go back to the open science principles, the concept of transparent knowledge across collaborative networks and making things open. So in a few words, I hope I've explained to you how indeed the Research Data Alliance very much contributes with many, many, many other actors. We do not have exclusivity on this, but what we do offer is the bottom-up community-driven perspective and platform so that we can work together in a global context and in a globally driven thing, because as we know, science and research are international. They don't have any borders. So I will finish on that and pass over to my next colleague, which is Kevin, I believe.
Indeed, thank you. And now I've got control of the screen, and I'm going to give you a little bit more detail for those of you. I know some of you are familiar with what a plenary involves, but for those of you who aren't, I'll go through a little about what plenary meetings are like, describe a little about us, the hosts, and why we're organising this, and hopefully give you a feeling about why it is that you should make the effort to attend. So let's start with what happens at a plenary. Well, those working groups and interest groups that Hilary described, it's primarily about them meeting to progress their work. They work between plenary meetings, but there's a great deal you can do when you dedicate time over a few days, either for groups in the early stages, they're defining their problems, they're refining their plans about how they're going to tackle a problem. In the midterm, often groups will have some interim results. They want to get feedback on that. They want to make sure that they're still going in the right direction. And at that point, they've still got the chance to change tack a little bit, to adjust what they're planning to do on the basis of community feedback. And in the late stages, groups will be sharing their outputs, and they'll be looking to encourage others to adopt those outputs to help build the bridges that we were talking about. Most of the sessions that take place during a plenary involve a single group, but occasionally there'll be sessions combining groups where there are shared interests or overlaps in their areas of work, so they can ensure they're proceeding towards a common goal. And the other types of sessions that take place are birds of a feather sessions, BOFs, which are mainly where ideas for new groups are examined. If you've got an idea that you're interested to see how many other people might be willing to pursue it, that BOF sessions are for you. And there are also poster sessions with the opportunities for one-to-one discussion that they offer, a very few keynote presentations and a small amount of RDA business, meetings of its governance committees, and elections and announcements of candidates to those. And there are associated side events of all types. When you bring this number of people together, it's often worthwhile exploiting that for other groups to have meetings. And one of those this week, this time, will be a mini international digital curation conference running over 1 day rather than the 3 days that we usually do. But the key message I want to get across is that RDA plenaries are not a traditional conference. It's not about inviting papers and talks. There's a minimal amount of actual plenary sessions where everyone's expected to attend. It's mainly about the working groups, the interest groups, and the one part in which we do invite contributions is with the poster sessions. So that's plenaries in general. But this plenary, RDA Plenary 17 next year, what's going to be different about that? Well, it's going to have all of those elements, but clearly at the moment we're having to follow essentially two dual tracks. We're planning for either a hybrid event involving some people at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre with a substantial virtual element, or for a fully virtual event. And whichever of those tracks we go down, we really want to create an environment where the real work can get done, as always happens, where everybody can engage fully, but also where we can get that ad hoc interaction that's key, I think, to events like this, as well as the more formal interaction involved in the working group meetings. And we also want to bring in contributions from the wider data community in Edinburgh and in the UK, and I'll say more about that later. So who are these people who are inviting you to do this? Well, in one sense, it's RDA who invites everyone to each of these plenaries around the world. As Hilary says, RDA looks for volunteers to host these events. But it's also us, the local hosts, each of the Digital Curation Centre, JISC, and UKRI, STFC. The UK as a country has the second largest membership of RDA after the USA. Edinburgh has got many activities and data infrastructure that straddle both academia, city government, and the tech industry. And indeed, Edinburgh has aspirations to be the data capital of Europe, as it describes itself. So we feel that both for the UK, for Edinburgh in particular, it's time that we brought the world here to share and learn together, and we very much want you to be a part of that. So each of us involved in the organisation have got many years of development and action in data reuse. For STFC as a research council, clearly efficient and effective data reuse is fundamental to what they do, and they've got decades of experience in every area, from policy development to the creation of tools and standards and the operation of infrastructure that makes this possible. JISC programs have enabled UK universities to rapidly develop services for research data ahead of many others around the world, as well as investigating some more fundamental issues around data preservation and reuse. And they also now operate shared services that enable more universities to take action to support their researchers where it doesn't make sense for those universities to do things for themselves. And as for us at the DCC, well, our mission is to enable organisations to use and reuse data more effectively. We do that through a mixture of services, training, consultancy, and research. And one thing that links us together is that the DCC was initially established through JISC funding over 15 years ago, and STFC were a founding member of the consortium that was the DCC. So we have a shared and a linked history. And just as importantly, all of us derive value from working with and through RDA, and we'd encourage you to do the same. So Edinburgh is a relatively small city, but it's got activities and data reuse that are out of all proportion to its size. It's home to the Edinburgh International Data Facility that, as I mentioned before, links together data methods and users from all of these different domains. And that allows us to apply data reuse, not just in the areas you might expect, either in the sciences and the humanities, but through Edinburgh's festivals around the performing arts industry, but also in commerce, public policy, and more. And whether or not you're able to be here in person and experience what Edinburgh has to offer, you can share in what's going on here and hopefully get our attention, what you're doing, and learn more about what's happening here. So to summarise why we think you ought to attend, RDA lets each of us achieve things together that are difficult or impossible to do alone. You can contribute to things that are valued to do. You can get support for others to work on your ideas in a global collaboration. As hosts, we're all people who, I think we know how to run great events. We know how to get the most out of a plenary, and we really want you to do the same. And whether you're going to be here in person or virtually, we think Edinburgh's got a lot to offer to you. And thanks. And we're going to take questions right at the end of all of this, but now I hand over to Juan. I think you may still be muted at the moment, Juan. So we were having some technical issues earlier. It seems we may still be.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, the become presenter window had popped up and had made everything dead, and I hadn't noticed it. Okay, so hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I will endeavour to screen share. Hopefully you can see my screen now, is that right?
Yeah, we see the RDA building the global data infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Good. So, yeah, thanks for everyone for attending. I'm Plenary from the Science and Technology Facilities Council, which is one of the research councils in UKRI, and I'm speaking on behalf of UKRI, who are co-organisers of the event, which you've heard. I'm head of data division in the Scientific Computing Department in STFC, and I'm also the RDA representative on the European Open Science Cloud Executive Board and a member of the RDA Organisational Advisory Board. So I'm kind of focusing this talk on how RDA contributes to building a global data infrastructure for research within Europe. A large part of that, or an important part of that, let's say, is happening through the European Open Science Cloud. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how RDA contributes to EOSC. Firstly, just a word from UKRI. UKRI are really pleased to co-organise this plenary with DCC and JISC, and UKRI see RDA as a crucial community that is helping to build the global research environment which will achieve UKRI goals. UKRI is the body that funds university research, public sector research in the UK. It consists of 7 research councils and some other bodies and the other funding bodies for universities and technology transfer. So we're just going to do 3 things really, just talk very, very briefly about open research in the UK, and then talk about some particular groups, one that is doing regional and global, bringing the regional and global things together, and 2 specific working groups. And these are like 3 different pictures of RDA. So a little bit of history first about open research in the UK. Kevin already mentioned some of these. So the UK's got a long-standing commitment to open research as a strategic priority, and in particular now, really in 2013, when RDA was founded, the G8 science ministers met in London at about the same time, and they put up 4 global challenges, and one of them was open scientific research data. And that really marked a sea change in the approach. All that open science and open data and open access have been policy principles for quite a while for a lot of funders around the UK. But with the G8 making this commitment, and at the same time in the US, the OSTP put out a mandate for sharing of data, and Europe, the European Union, put out various bits of policy. Things really changed in 2013, and RDA was part of that change. In 2016 in the UK, we put out a concordat on open research data, which really kind of detailed a lot of the practical things that have to happen in order to build this research data infrastructure in the UK and as a part of the global research infrastructure. And the principal one there, I just quote, is worth repeating: open access through research and data is an enabler of high quality research, a facilitator of innovation, and safeguards good research practice. And those three things are really three different driving forces, all pushing for open data. In 2018, UKRI published a strategic prospectus, and one of the four foundations of excellent research there is openness. And here I've just put the a little summary of what was in that prospectus: the four areas: leading talent, a trusted and diverse system, research culture, and openness and transparency. And openness and transparency breaks down into three things: open access to papers, open research data, and open culture, which are seen together to be the vitally important things, and alongside that, working internationally. And that's where RDA plays a crucial part in bringing research policy and practice from different countries together. And one way it does that is through the Global Open Research Commons Working Group. This is a relatively new group within RDA, and the idea is that it allows different parts of the world to share an understanding of their regional initiatives. It came out from a funders forum that was and still is part of RDA as well, and its idea is it's a platform for funders to share ideas and plans in order to be able to coordinate their initiatives around open science. The European Open Science Cloud is one of those. It is only one of them, but it's quite a big one. And it's recognised that EOSC needs to be globally interoperable. And therefore, EOSC has always supported and taken a lot of notice of RDA. There's always, for example, been an EOSC event at European plenaries since the EOSC has been going for the last 3 or 4 times. There are many RDA working groups relevant to EOSC. I just picked 3 here, and the technical level persistent identifier is a kind of a hub of the EOSC, and the RDA has had several groups working on persistent identifiers since the very start, and all that input is very important to EOSC. And then 2 others that I'm going to talk about on the next couple of slides: the Fair Maturity Model and the COVID-19 Working Group. And if you look within Europe, there's considerable overlapping membership and coordination between the RDA working groups, or the European part of them, and the EOSC working groups that are defining things for EOSC. So a couple of words on the COVID-19 working group. It's an example of a working group. It's not a typical one. It was put together very quickly and very, very quickly picked up an awful lot of momentum, so that over 4 months, it collected 450 members in 9 subgroups, which are listed there, who together put together a very considerable document on recommendations and guidelines on data sharing, particularly with the idea that it could help steer researchers of one form or another to different parts of, to different resources that are available globally in terms of data, and could also help funders put out the right policies in order to enable the sharing of that data. As I said, it's not a typical group because it worked very quickly. It did its work in 4 months, more or less, a substantial part of its work. But it's worth noting that all the RDA subgroups, working groups, are aimed to do their work very quickly. So typically the lifespan of the working group is 12 to 18 months. So these are not things that go on for many, many years. A working group defines its task, puts in some work, and delivers an output. So just to give you a flavour for what this document's like, and it's very difficult to summarise such a large document in a little clip, but I just put a clip here on the right. The most important thing here is perhaps that you can see it's section 4.4.3.3. This is a very highly structured document that just systematically goes through a very long list of available resources. There are 1,200 references in a curated library, which is itself a very significant contribution. So finally, the FAIR Data Maturity Model Group. This is setting up some core criteria to assess the implementation levels of the FAIR data principles. It's another large working group with 264 members. It's developed its own specifications and guidelines for maturity of fairness. It's intended for the owners of fair assessment methodologies. So there isn't going to be one single way of measuring fairness across all disciplines and across the whole world. But through the work of this group, we'd hope to be able to coordinate the different assessment methodologies so that they at least have some common ground. And it's come up with a number of indicators for the individual aspects of fairness that should be evaluated. And there's an example in the small picture on the right of the listing of the kind of things that fall into those indicators, a set of priorities that have the relative importance of the indicators, and an evaluation method that shows how the results of evaluation can be given a value. So that's all what I wanted to say. Just a couple of examples of the kind of thing that RDA is doing to coordinate and set standards for developing the global research data infrastructure. Thank you.
Right, hello everyone. Hopefully you can see my slides. Please shout if you can't. Okay, so I'm going to be, my name is Christopher Brown and I work for JISC. My presentation is going to be in two parts. I'm going to talk about the RDA UK national node and JISC support for research. The RDA UK is one of 22 national nodes which were helping to consolidate a strong European research data community. UKRI SDFC was the official node, or I should say is the official node. But JISC has provided support to the node throughout the project and continues to support the node. And I say was in the past then because the funding was from March 2018 to May 2020, although that was extended to September 2020 because of delays in running workshops due to COVID. And as I say, different switching between tense was and is, because although funding has ended, the work of the UK node will continue at least until the 17th plenary and hopefully beyond. So there were a number of key objectives of running the node. One was to increase membership and engage with the UK's research community, promoting and encouraging participation in the RDA, disseminating RDA activities, recommendations and outputs, and also including the adoption of these recommendations and outputs, and liaising with EOS projects. There's a few examples there. Some of the highlights from the node include an increase of membership, as Kevin has said, with the second largest in after the US, but the membership has increased by around 40% in the time of the project. We've engaged with a number of organisations and projects, and 3 quite successful workshops. One of these was with the FREYA project on persistent identifiers, and also with OpenAIR on EOS and Open Science. Also, UK members have submitted 4 adoption stories, which you can find on the RDA website, and also you'll find all this information on the RDA UK homepage. There's also been discussions between UKRI and JISC on coordination of international open science activities. We've been participating in the planning and the preparation of Plenary 17, and UK members have represented in a number of high-profile roles in RDA, not just in the time of the node. I mean, since the very start of RDA, and there's just a few examples I've added there. So apologies for anyone I've missed out, but we are well represented within the RDA. During the time of the project, membership has grown steadily, and as you can see, there's a sharp increase in March, which was most likely due to the interest in the COVID-19 working group that Juan has just mentioned, and the work on RDA's COVID-19 recommendations and guidelines on data sharing. This graph actually shows the attendance from the most well-represented countries at a selection of previous plenaries. I know where some of the data is missing, so apologies for that, but there's enough data to highlight a couple of key things. One of these is that the host nation is well represented. As you can see there, the US has well represented in US hosted events, Germany in Berlin, and French and France in Paris. And the second thing is that the UK has always been well represented at European plenaries. So why would we like to see, well, we would like to see you at the UK Plenary 17, and we hope it's well represented by UK members for a number of reasons. Firstly, this is the first UK plenary. We have the second largest membership in the RDA, as mentioned. It's actually 944 at the end of September out of over 11,000 members. So that's quite a large community, which is active and engaged in the RDA. Also, research is international. This event draws a global audience, whether hybrid or virtual. As a host nation, it's in Europe, we'd like to continue being well represented. And as you've already heard, we have an active membership in many groups. Second part of my presentation is just going to talk through about some of the work that JISC does supporting research and why JISC has supported the work of the RDA. For those who don't know, JISC supports education and research for our members, including all universities and FE colleges. We're a not-for-profit organisation supporting the FE, HE, FE and skills sectors. And our vision is for the UK to be the world leader in technology for education and research by empowering our members with the technology and data they need to succeed. And we do this in a number of ways, and here are a few examples of the areas where we provide support and some of the services we provide. And many of these support research in a number of different ways. For example, there's the JANET network, which connects all UK universities and key research establishments to the rest of the digital research world. JISC Mail, I'm sure many of you have used. Shared services, infrastructure, cloud solutions, and advice and guidance on the management of library resources, the research publication lifecycle, and research outputs. We also negotiate sector-wide deals with IT vendors and commercial publishers. And I picked out a few examples of some of the research services, a few examples of open access and open research products and services we provide. I don't really have time to go into these, so please see our website for more information on those. That's just a selection of how we support open research and open access. Although we support our UK members, fully aware that research is international, as Hilary said, that there are no borders with research and data. And we've supported the RDA through funding, participation and collaboration even before the RDA UK node. These are just a few examples of some of the other international work that we participate in. There's the EOSC work, the European Open Science Cloud. We are the UK's National Open Access Desk, the NOAD for Open Air. We've run the ORCID Consortium for 5 years, and we contribute to CODATA funding. Finally, as Hilary mentioned about building bridges, I thought I'd list a number of research, well, not research projects as such, but there are a number of areas where we are running projects within JISC, and there's an overlap with the work that's going on within working groups, whether interest groups, working groups, or birds of a feather, to show the overlap between some of the JISC work and the RDA work. So each of these is supported by the activities of the RDA, helping to build the bridges that enable the open sharing and reuse of data. And we see the plenaries as important events that bring our research community together to discuss these and many other activities. And we would like, well, we look forward to joining you at Plenary 17 and hope you will too. So that's me. I think it's over to Sarah now.
Am I unmuted now? No?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You can hear me now. Okay, good. And hopefully you can see my screen. Can you?
Yep, I
Yeah,
can see your
can you see
slide.
the slides? Yeah,
It's
excellent.
not in
Okay, so
presentation mode yet.
and slides share mode. Okay, excellent. So the final thing I wanted to talk about is really how to engage with Plenary 17. So you've heard about what the RDA is, some of the working groups and interest groups, and the ways and the work that different hosts of the RDA Plenary in Edinburgh are doing. And I wanted to give you just some practical tips on, how you can engage, how you can submit proposals or join different groups. And I wanted to start really with a personal reflection on why I think RDA is useful and the benefits that I get from being a member. And the first thing, this might sound a little bit cheesy, but I think RDA is a place where you can really actually find your data family. We all do work, well, I assume most of you on the line are doing work either in research support or data centers, or you're in a research group yourselves and active in that space. And I find RDA is a very diverse melting pot. You've got people from all different backgrounds, all different career stages, all different disciplines. And I think you can easily find people that you can connect with who do similar work to you. And it's a really good space, because it's so international, to actually build that international network, to find people who are having similar challenges to you in your role from different countries, and then to learn from them and to collaborate with them. And it's a really good space to actually just use as a sounding board, to meet people in similar roles, get their advice, learn from what they're doing. And the way that the working groups and interest groups run, the fact that you're kind of collaborating and developing a solution together, I think it helps get a lot more impact and success for your work. So rather than you devising your own curricula for data science, or addressing data policy at an institutional level, or things about lab notebooks, when you do it in a forum like RDA, because it's something that multiple contributors from different countries and different backgrounds are feeding into, you get much stronger outputs. And it also means that you're able to demonstrate that the thing that you've been involved in and have developed and have used at your institution isn't just something that's a bespoke solution there, it's something that's adopted internationally. So it may take longer to develop, but I think you get an awful lot from doing work through RDA. And there are also lots of career development opportunities. There are various bodies within RDA. You can chair working groups and interest groups. You can get involved in the technical advisory board or council. So depending on what stage you're at and the kind of opportunities you would like, I think RDA is a really good vehicle to add to your CV and to build your networks and your profile. So in terms of practicalities for Edinburgh, one of the key things I would encourage you to do is to submit a proposal. And there are different types, as you've heard already from Kevin. I'm going to repeat a little bit here, but there's different types of sessions. So we have what we call birds of a feather sessions, and these are very speculative ideas. Maybe you're working on something that you're finding challenging, and you're sure you're not the only person, and you want to put forward an idea to maybe collaborate on a particular topic. So we've had BOF sessions in the past around things like professionalizing data stewardship, or around data science training. And then those have formed into official interest groups and working groups, because we found that it's a lot of people have those shared interests and the specific outputs we could deliver collectively. You can also, if you're involved in existing interest groups or working groups, the chairs are invited to submit sessions to discuss the work that they're doing and to progress those topics. And they can be collaborative sessions as well. So sometimes some groups, their remits start to overlap and they come together around a particular topic. And the other thing that I think it's really useful to consider is co-located events. So actually at the current plenary that's coming up in Costa Rica in a couple of weeks, we've organized a co-located event on delivering RDM services. Now, this is something that we knew a lot of people were interested in, and some of the issues that they face around procurement or choosing open source options. And we know that there's a big international community at the RDA plenaries, which was why we wanted to co-locate our event with that, to take advantage of that diversity of attendees and potential speakers. So if you have a topic that you're wanting to run an event around, it's worth thinking about the RDA as a good way to kind of co-locate. The important dates you need to be aware of here: the call for submissions will open in October, and the deadline will be January, and we should notify people by February. So it's worth starting to think now about what you may want to put in. In terms of the groups, it's useful to review the existing groups and to see what are most pertinent to your interests and to join those. There is a RDA for you kind of navigation tool that helps you select and filter groups by topic and discipline. And for each plenary, we also have what we call plenary pathways. And these help you pick out the key themes like fair data or open science, and to find all the relevant kind of sessions that cut through the plenary based on those topics. So as we come up to the plenary in Edinburgh, look out for the plenary pathways. And then one of the most important things, I think, attending the plenary. I know many of you are in the UK, and I seriously hope that COVID's kind of died down by that time, and we will be able to have some in-person contact at the plenary. But we're planning at the moment for hybrid. We also will definitely have lots of online and remote options. So if attending in person isn't feasible, then you will always be able to participate remotely. And Kevin already flagged there is a conference that we're co-locating, the IDCC, International Digital Curation Centre Conference. You'll recognise some of the motley crew from this photo when we ran our conference a couple of years ago. If RDM and open science is new to you, I think this is quite a good grounding, because IDCC is more of a traditional conference where there will be papers where people share their current lessons and you kind of learn from one another. As Kevin mentioned before, RDA is more of a working event. It's not a conference per se. So I think IDCC can be a useful way to kind of like learn and get some background context if RDA is new to you. And when you come to the plenary, there are lots of really useful networking opportunities. I would flag the RDA for newcomers. There's always a session to help people understand RDA and to navigate the plenary. There's also certain groups that are really good for new starters. So the Early Career Interest Group, which is trying to help people engage and build collaborations and get mentors. We do have a funders forum, so it's worth encouraging the funders from your country to join up to the funders forum, because then it also helps kind of network them with other relevant open science and data sharing kind of policies and initiatives. And there will be various hybrid and virtual social events. So just when the call was starting today, we were talking about virtual reality options in Edinburgh. We will be exploring ways that we can help you engage and meet people, whether you're in person or remote. So there will be opportunities to network there too. And the final thing I wanted to show, you might need to download the slide to get this infographic properly, but this is an infographic we made up for the plenary in Melbourne, just really giving you the rundown of what to do in advance of the RDA plenary, how to make the most of it. So the things you can explore in advance, like a few months before the plenary, the kind of the groups, so you understand which groups are most relevant to you, the newcomers guide, how to connect with different members, and then how to engage with the plenary, how to prepare in that month before to understand which sessions are going to be most useful to you, because it can be, there's a lot happening in parallel, so it can be a little bit bewildering if you just show up and try and find your way when you first arrive at RDA. And then obviously the benefits from attending and what you can do post-plenary to follow up with those networks and potentially to be engaging in the different interest and working groups. So that's all I had to say. I think I took longer than I expected to take, but we should hopefully still have time for questions. So I will change back to Alex in case you want to share screen.
Yeah, sure. I can just switch the document.
And so we had a question like right at the start about you know, how many are on the call and who's attending. We seem to have quite a mix from different countries, but I don't know if any questions have come in since.
No, I don't think there are any questions, but I just wondered, maybe people would be wondering about when we're going to decide whether this will actually take place as a physical event, as well as a virtual event. Maybe Kevin or Alex, do you want to just kind of elaborate on how we will make those decisions?
Yes, sure. So we are actively investigating and planning for both options. We are in constant contact with the Edinburgh International Conference Centre, and essentially we are listening to the community, and we are listening to the government, and safety is our first concern for everybody. So at the moment we are planning for a hybrid, and we will be planning for a hybrid with the opportunity for people to join us remotely for as long as we can until we are forced by the nature of COVID and the governments to not do that. So for as long as we can, we are hoping that we will be able to get everybody together in Edinburgh, or some of us in Edinburgh. So for now, this is our plan.
Yeah, I realise it'd be, I'm sure what people would like is a date by which we can say we'll have a decision. I think it's difficult to be absolutely firm about that right now, but I think what we are taking into account is that, I mean, just from a number of points of view, our own planning, if nothing else, the more notice we can give to people about which track we're going to go down, the better. But the one thing that is clear at the moment, given that, as Sarah mentioned, that the calls for proposals is going to open in 3 days' time, we definitely won't have made a decision about it then. So at this stage, we're going to say your proposals need to take into account all the possibilities. So for instance, for groups, that might mean that the group chair may not be physically here, even if some of the attendees are, and all those other possibilities. But hopefully, I think for those planning sessions, there shouldn't be too much of a burden to try and go down both tracks. I think it's for us as organisers, it's the biggest worry. Be interested in views though for those other attendees on the call.
Thanks, Alex and Kevin.
Do we have any raised hands?
Could I say something about the fee? We haven't mentioned that, I think, but it's a recurring question for the plenary 16. So I'm going to take this opportunity to make just a small comment on it. This would be Costa Rica is our second fully virtual plenary. The first one was a last minute change, whereas and so we put on the plenary meeting at the last minute and transformed it to a 3-week virtual meeting. The Costa Rican one has been planned in advance, but you will all appreciate that it is also an event that requires, like Edinburgh, if not actually, it's been simpler perhaps, for, if I could say that without anyone taking offence, but because it was almost always going to be a virtual plenary because we saw it in early time, and now we come to a particular situation where we're looking at a hybrid event, which many of you will know there are very, very few examples of hybrid events. And so they're always, you know, the parameters are quite high, and we need to investigate that. We ask for a fee, and we think it's quite a reasonable and considerable fee. There will be one in Scotland for Edinburgh as well. This is to offset the costs. So in all the plenaries of RDA, we never cover the costs of the actual physical presence there, cost per head. It's offset by sponsors and things like that. We're in a very challenging economic period at the moment. And you may not believe it, but organising a virtual event is actually much more labour intensive, particularly on the Secretariat, but also the local organisers. So we will charge a fee also for Scotland. They will let you know what it is. We feel, again, it's reasonable possibly in both cases, the content will be made available just to those who have registered for a short period, and then 3 to 4 weeks after the plenary, it will be made available online. And as I said, we're getting a lot of questions about it, so I'm going to take the opportunity of clarifying it, that the money will go to offset the costs, not cover them, offset them, because the cost for a technological platform that can support a hybrid event is quite considerable, and everything else that will go into it. So,
yeah, I think we've seen some individuals saying for the upcoming plenary 16 that their organisations are questioning why there are registration fees for virtual events. I hope many people understand it, as you make clear, Hilary, there are costs. It's also, not surprisingly, the market, the people who provide the technological tools that allows these things to happen have very rapidly made sure that the costs for using these tools are not very different from the cost of actually hiring a physical venue. Lots of people think, oh, it's online, it's not going to cost you anything. It clearly does. But one of the things I think we'll need to do is to cope with other people who find similar challenges in attempting to get agreement for the registration fee, is to try and help make the case, to provide some information that people can use to make a case internally with their organisation to justify that registration fee.
And something we may need to consider is like day registration fees. I've had a lot of people questioning whether they can just pay to come to one session if they're just involved in one buff or something.
Yeah, although it's a difficult thing, and it's that I think that maybe many people want to do, and yet I think the types of advantages that we've all described so far in what you can get out of being at a plenary, you will miss if you only decide to turn up for the one thing that you're already involved with. In a sense, it's one of those consequences of traveling to a physical event. Once you've traveled a good few 100 kilometers or more somewhere, you're going to spend the 2 or 3 days there, and you went for one particular thing, but you can take advantage of all the other things that will happen while they're there. And I think we'd really want to make sure that people also gain that advantage, even from a virtual or a hybrid event. Unexpected benefits can always come from that.
So true. But fingers crossed.
So, yeah. So does anyone have any questions? I don't know if people can unmute themselves if they want to, or raise hands, or type in chat. Or maybe we bombarded with lots of information and answered everything.
There's one question there, if there will be lower fees for attendees from lower middle income countries and or students, and the answer is yes. Yes, we will. There will be categories for that.
Yes,
Any raised hand?
I was just going to say one thing, because I focused on UK participation, but we obviously want a global participation as well, don't we? Want to make it a truly international global event, but we want UK well represented as well. So.
Yeah, and I think it's there's sort of a dual reasoning there. I mean, it's for the UK audience that we thought it was time to bring the event here, just because of the number of people here, but also for those from around the world. I mean, it's a chance to engage with indeed the second biggest active RDA community there is. So yeah, benefits for all, we hope. And I think certainly by my clock here, we're just about on the hour, I think.
Yeah.
So if there are no more questions, thank you all for your attention. Thanks to all of my colleagues for the time we put together to hopefully try and persuade you. to join us next year. In the meantime, we should also mention, of course, registration is open for the plenary before the plenary that we've been talking about, plenary 16, taking place in just a couple of weeks' time, again, virtually in Costa Rica.
Excellent.
So
hope to see some of you either in Costa Rica or virtually,
Yes.
or in Edinburgh.
thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye all, thank you.
Hope that was interesting.